starting on a fake beam or faux beam. So as you can see, there's no ceiling or no beam, anything up there. I'm getting started on that today. You've probably seen the finished product, what it looked like. Let me just kind of give you a rundown of my idea, how I'm gonna do it. So originally I had these marked out for these pieces here, these are 3.5. And what I'm gonna do is line them up there. I was gonna line them up on each line and screw them up to the truss. And then our beam will run along the outside on each side and have a piece on the bottom to be, you know, like a U shape. Just say this is the bottom, you'll have this side and this side, and they'll go up to these actual blocks and nail on the side here. Pop a line from this section and then also on this section to that wall, so that I don't have to mark every single one of them. I can just follow my chalk line. But that's a pretty long stretch to do just one line, because the line will be kind of faded on the side that you don't actually, you know, use your hand to pop it on. So I'm gonna remark these. I'm gonna do them 5.5 inches instead of 3.5. I'm gonna cut some 2x4s to screw up there, blocks, and then I have my 1x to make, and I have a table saw, and I'll probably do a video on that table saw. I'm gonna rip the 1x to the exact length that I want. I want it to be 7 wide and 7 tall, because by the time we add the 10, like this is going for the ceiling in there, the 10, the trim, well, the stripping, and then the 10 on top of it that we have to run in here, it's gonna be about 2 inches shorter, make the beam look a little shorter. So it'll be 5x7, 5 tall by 7 after that's on the ceiling's on there. That's the plan. Measured 5.5, make sure my blade's right where I want it, and I just clamp this piece here. It's cut square. It's faster, so all I gotta do is butt it up against it like so, cut, and then move on down the line without having to measure each one of them. And I know they're all exactly the same length. Keep it nice and square all the way down. So I don't know if you can see it, but I got my chalk lines popped all the way across. Got my pieces cut out. I went and marked the center of all of them just so I can line it up right. I'm gonna put a screw on each side in the center. And also marked it on the side, so when I put it up to the truss, I know where I can line that up with the center of my truss to screw it down. So I'm about to pre-drill some of these, and I'm gonna use, I got 4-inch screws for this. That way I have plenty of bite into the truss. So let me get these drilled out real quick. So the reason I'm pre-drilling is because, for one, so I can get the angle here that I want. So what I come up with, by holding my square up there, figured out what would be basically a 90 degree with the truss itself. And that's what I come up with. So I'm gonna hold my drill, got my spaces marked, inch and a half from each side. I'm gonna start drilling there, try to hold it on that angle, you know, like so. And do all of them like that, and we'll start screwing them up. So as you can see here, I got a couple of them done. I just gotta finish the rest. And to keep them from walking, trying to go one way or the other, better to just have straight. But I wanted them at the same angle as this to get as much bite on there as possible, because I'm gonna have, you know, beam hanging from it. So really all I gotta do is just start each side and then drill it in there. And actually what I've been doing is taking my drill bit that I drilled these holes with, going through, it sticks out probably a little 1/8 inch or so. So I'll run through there, just put a little indent on each side where it comes out. That way, once I can get my screws started just a little bit, and then I can just run them on in, and it's no trouble with it walking. So I got all of them screwed up. They're all pretty good and straight. The only issue with this, I guess, method of doing it that I see so far. So you got a straight line popped, But sometimes when they made these trusses, it may be a little longer this side, this may be a little longer and all for the center mark, which could throw this particular block off level one way or the other a slight bit, which would kick, you know, one corner up or out or in different amount. So it shouldn't really be an issue, because if, you know, we go to put the beam, slide the beam up over here to nail it, because it'll be nailed, you know, probably one there, one there. If you go to slide it up on there and it's hitting one edge, you can just mark which one it is, come back with an oscillating multi-tool, cut the corner off a little bit, and slide it up on there. So that's not really a problem, it's just an extra step. My marks, I held a level up there to them, and they were perfectly level across. But some of these in between those are a little, just from the manufacturing of these, you know, a little bit off, and it's a little lopsided. But anyway, you can see pretty straight. That's a couple you might not be able to see on video, but that's what I was just mentioning. I can see a couple that's slightly little off as you look down through there. I mean, off, you know, level this way. So I don't know, before I get this half, you know, obviously the fireplace is going to be a separate video, but I got to frame all that out first to know where to stop that beam on this side. Next part of this video, it should be a fireplace somewhere right there in the area. So I'm about to cut and rip my board for my beam. It's going to be in two pieces, like I mentioned, this side and then that side. So I'm working on this one first. I got my dead wood nailed up and everything. So from the wall to the center is 12 foot 3/8. But I'm gonna cut a little off each end to kind of square it up. It's pretty square already. I'm just gonna cut the end nice and smooth. So I'm gonna make a cut here, flip it around and cut a 1/16 or an 1/8 off the other side, and it'll be a 12 foot, which this is a little longer than 12 foot anyway. It's like 12 and a half. So I'm gonna cut it down, that way once I cut a little off each side, it'll be 12 foot 3/8. Then I'm going to rip just a little bit off of it. It's 7 1/4 wide. I'm gonna rip it down to where it's 7 inches even tall. This is pretty square already, but you can see like how it's rounded just on the very edge. I'm gonna try to get rid of that to sort of have as flush of a fit up as possible when I nail it. So as you can see, I got my pieces ripped from my beam. I got my finishing nailer here with 16 gauge nails. I got some pieces 5 1/2 cuts, which are the same as these up here. I'm gonna put it every so far just to hold it up while I go down through there nailing it. And I'm gonna get this beam nailed together. So as you can see here, I have my beam built. It's good and flush all the way down. So I'll rotate it over just so you can kind of see. You know, that's what it looks like all the way down. There's one done. I'm gonna get this other one done. I won't do that on camera. I'll get it done, and then once we get to hanging it up, you'll see the finished product. Like I mentioned before, I think I mentioned before, these gonna be what I nail them into those blocks with. 2.5 inch framing nails. Those are 2-inch finishing nails. So I'm gonna have one joint in the middle, and that's the reason I just did 2 sections instead of trying to stagger all of them, because I didn't really want to have a bunch of seams to fill with the wood putty or wood filler. And the way I cut those, rip those with that table saw, they're nice and flush and square. You can't hardly even tell there's a seam there, which is why I did that. So it looks good there. I won't have to fill any of that in. I'll just take my sander and run down the edges of it. The joint in the middle, you know, I'm gonna butt them up as tight as I can. And then whatever gaps left, I'll take some wood filler and fill it in. But that's also gonna be where I built the box to hang a fan, which is the only fan in the house. So when I hang it there, it'll cover some of that, so it'll just have a seam here and there, and I'll sand that smooth, and you should hardly be able to tell, especially after I stain it. Once I stain it, it'll hide it even more. So let me quit rambling on and just get to this other one. Those are done. I'll get them hung up, get everything sanded down and all that. Then I gotta figure out my stain. I want to match the beam to the walnut on the mantel and what I'm gonna do my countertops with. So I'll get those up there, get some test pieces, stain, kind of pick which one I want. So as you can see, we got the beam up, and it's looking pretty good. We got a little bit of a dog leg in it. And if you don't know what dog leg means, if you look at a dog's leg, it's kind of angled, like one end is a little off. So I got an 1/8 inch gap right here, but ain't no big deal. I haven't figured out if I'm gonna just put some wood putty, you know, just to fill it in, sand it down, or if I'm gonna do some like metal, or they got some that's leather that looks like metal. I'll put a picture of it up right here so you can see what I'm talking about, just to cover the seam without having to do all that filling in and sanding. Standing right on the one end, you can look down and see the dog leg in it, and most people can't even see it. Like my wife, she come up here and looked the other day, she couldn't tell, but like I can tell. I got a pretty good eye. It's got a little dog leg. But the refrigerator's gonna be there, the refrigerator and some cabinet and your couch and stuff, so you're not really gonna be on one end looking at it. And if you're anywhere in the middle looking, you can't tell. So that's the thing, it'd be okay. I'm just OCD. It's all good. We got a block in right here. Took a 2x6, which I may get up there and show you in just a second, but I took a 2x6, just cut 5.5 this way, which is the width of it, and just laid it down in there and nailed across with some finishing nails to hold it flush. And then at the very top up there, we just put a 2x4 to help hold the top flush too. But we're just gonna put, because we're gonna mount a fan. It's gonna be really the only fan in the whole house, honestly, but it's gonna be a big fan. It's gonna hang from the beam right here. So we're gonna cut the beam out to screw the box, the electrical box to. And so I'm about to work on sanding and staining the beam, and I'll show you what color I'm gonna go with and what how I come about that. So it's kind of dark out here, but what I did was, first things first, I took some scrap piece that I cut off one of them beams, used that for test pieces. I had some Jayco bean I used, it was too dark. I got some dark walnut, it was too dark. Gunmetal or gunstock didn't match. Then I had light walnut, which is more of a red, didn't match. So then I had Special Walnut by Minwax, Early American by Varathane, however, which is that. And then I had an English Chestnut by Minwax. So I narrowed it down. The Special Walnut was almost kind of identical to the walnut mantle I got in there that's not coated. But that's the walnut mantle I'm going with. So I wanted to match a walnut color, so I kind of compared it to those. or to that, and it was almost matched up perfectly. But by the time I put either epoxy or urethane on it, it makes it that wet look. It darkens it up. This would be too light. I've narrowed it down between early American and English chestnut. And then what I went and did was I cut out different strips, sanded it with different grit. I did 180, 220, and 320. 320 is too smooth. And obviously I couldn't use the 180, so it come down, or the 100, so it come down to 180 and 220. And then I used some pre-stain conditioner and did some without it. So different combinations of that. And the English chestnut, I just put like a semi-gloss urethane over it on half of it, just to kind of see the appearance that it would have, you know, once it's coated. I only did one coat. I was gonna go two, but I kind of compared it while it was still wet to be pretty accurate. Because the mantle itself is going to be gloss, but the beam is going to be whatever I do the walls with in there, which is in the doors, which is probably going to be either semi-gloss or just satin color, just a slight sheen to it. So anyway, I did those different combinations and compared them to the mantle in there. And best I can figure, it kind of, the urethane kind of lightened this up a little bit, it seemed like. But this basically stayed kind of the same color, maybe slightly darker it seems. So by holding it up to that mantle, the best one I could figure, the color that matches best was the early American right here, which is what I'm going to use. So then it comes down to the grit. Well, so what I'm going to go with is no pre-stain conditioner, because it really didn't make a difference after sanding. But the 180 matched a little bit better to the wet look of the mantle, the walnut, versus the 220. Yeah, excuse my chicken scratch. I was writing it real quick. Early American 180 grit, no conditioner. So that's what I'm about to go with. So what I'm about to do is slap some 180 grit sandpaper on my Bauer orbital sander here. And if you've watched any of my videos, you know I'm a big fan of the Bauer brand from Harbor Freight, even though it's Harbor Freight. But I'm about to slap some on that and do a good sanding on it, 180 all the way. And then wipe it down good and do some staining. So let's get started on that. So I finished sanding, got it smoothed down pretty good. I went back where my sander wouldn't reach, which is right up here against these truss. Took a piece of 320 and just hand sanded it. And the reason I did that is because, you know, when you hand sand, it's rougher than using a power sander. So 320 smoothed it down even with the 220 was. And then I rounded these edges. I cut with the table saw to square them off, so this would be as flush of a fit as possible in the seam. But I rounded the edges kind of on the outside to make it look like one solid piece. And you can see the nail holes. Can't see them as bad from, you know, on the floor, but you see them up here. But once it's stained, you won't really notice that because it'll be darker. And this is spruce, or a white wood as some people call it. Has a little different grain. See how the pine kind of has a circular grain. Spruce is wider and has a more of a straight grain, not really circular. There's a few places kind of circular, but not really. Mostly straight, but that's how the walnut is. It's mostly straight grains and if knots. And that's kind of how this is, straight grain with knots. So I think it'll match pretty good. So there's this side, and there's the other side. I think it turned out pretty good. And I found some flooring. Actually, the original flooring I was gonna do, they discontinued, but they got some new flooring, and it kind of looks like that, you know, pattern. So may go good together. I don't know. We'll see what we can do with the color of it. I'm pretty happy with it. It's probably that's gonna be it until I get the ceiling up. Once the ceiling's up, it'll do it more justice than looking at it like this. Look how which you can see right there on the cap. But look how rich brown stain is. I remember when I popped it open, the first thing I thought, I was like, yeah, that's probably gonna be the one I use. Just because of the color of it, and wouldn't you know, it was the one I used. So got the stripping up here for the ceiling for the 10. I haven't already showed you what it's gonna look like. It's gonna look like this right here. 10 here is gonna run this way on each side because of how long this is. But in the bedrooms, it's gonna run that way. So we also got the box for the fan on the beam. So this is 3/4 thick. The box is a 1/2 inch, sort of fit in there. And we had a block laying on the inside of there to nail these together and hold them even. So we took a hole saw, drilled up through just this, and then screwed the box into the block right there that you can see, right? And drilled a hole through the middle for the wire. So there's that. Put hooks in.
Alright. That was a magic color.
It's got yellow lights, there's that light, and then that. Okay, cool. So look at there. So as y'all seen, we got the trim up and we got this ceiling fan up. Right now I'm working on the very last piece of this beam until it's finished. And I got this strap. It comes in a roll and it's rubber, which they got some leather and some other stuff, but this looked pretty good. Like some just metal strap, like fake metal strap, but it's rubber. So what I'm doing here, I'm just holding it up there over the seam and marking. I don't know if you can tell, I got a couple pencil marks on each side. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm using this contact cement. This stuff works pretty good. You put it on, I think, both surfaces. Let it sit for like 15 minutes, at least 15 minutes, a little longer, and then it gets real tacky. But that's why I got the line, so that when I put it on there, it's lined up right. Because once it's on, you touch it, it's pretty much stuck. And I'm just gonna leave it with this. And I thought about maybe going back and just putting a couple brads in there afterwards to help hold it. But what I'm just gonna do this and leave it and try that first. And as long as that stays, then no problem. But if it tries to come back loose later, I'll come back and just put 2 or 3 little either finished nails or brads or something in there just to hold it on there. Now on the bottom here, what I'm gonna do is just cut a short piece. I'm gonna put the side on there, and then I'm gonna cut a short piece and just overlap to the edge of the one on the side here, because when you try to go around this 90 with that rubber, it just won't. It tries to buck out right here, so I'm gonna have to do 2 pieces of it. And the reason I have this down is because I'm gonna put it in there, hold that up, and mark around this and cut it so it has the same radius as this. But anyway, there's that. I'll show y'all what it looks like when I get done. This has like a brush applicator, kind of like PVC glue. So I got her all done. There's the close-up view here, you can see. And I'll give you a view down here. So here's a view down here from, I got the extra shop light here. I'll give you a couple different angles. But there's that. So just normal with the lights here. That's how she turned out, all finished up. I do one with the lights off too, but that's how the band turned up. So there she is with the lights off. Just got a little bit of a shine to it. I'll show you in a second. So the only thing that wasn't on camera after I got the stain on it, I went back and just put some of this Minwax oil-based polyurethane on it and a semi-gloss, and it gave it that slight shine. You can see, you know, in the light at the right angle, you see it shining. Other than that, it's pretty flat, but it looks good. So that's gonna wrap up this video. The only thing I may do, once we get the walls up here, you know, use some quarter round or something for trim around where the beam, where it goes up to the beam. But I may, instead of that, use some more of this strap looking stuff to go around it and make it look a little, I think it might make it look a little better. Kind of match for that. I don't know, we'll just see how that looks. But anyway, there she is. And I'll give you some different angles. You've already, since the trim and all that's up. You know, that's what it looks like all the way down. And of course, you know, you got a little more, you can see kind of just up in there, but that's just how it is. And I think it turned out great. I'm pretty pleased with the way that turned out. So I hope y'all enjoyed that video. I'm gonna move on to the next task.